Welcome to Two Chaps, Many Cultures, episode 127. On a day, quite frankly, if you're watching this in the future, this is going to be history to you on a day that we probably need to dig into a little bit. And I think it's prescient that we have a guest today who has served this country with great honor and distinction, and has brought the passion that she sees and the greatness, the potential she sees in this country. If it's not lived right now today, we want to talk about that. It's probably a little bit off topic of what we initially promoted, but it will be related, I promise you. Stick around. Please stick with this. This is important. Thank you, and see you soon. Hello, my friend. Nice shirt, by the way.
Yeah. Can you all read what it says?
Like that. Atlanta turned red, red state blue. Yeah.
Yeah, because as our guest that we had on before, many weeks ago, he knows that Atlanta... Oh, I should turn it around this way so you can read it. It says, Atlanta influences everything, especially in a day like today, January 6th, Epiphany. As the United States is having an epiphany, how vulnerable its system is, how vulnerable democracy is. And if we don't take care of it, then God help us.
Yes, absolutely. Especially when you're battling against the top people in the land. But we have somebody who is really a top person in the land and can speak to this directly. Let's bring on our guest now, please. Krystal Taylor. With absolutely no delay, we need to get you on here. How are you today, Krystal?
I am doing well. Thank you for having me, Brett and Christian. I'll tell you, Brett, don't talk me up too much now. You're building expectations.
You can handle that.
I've seen you on other, you're on our great friend 𝘾𝙗𝙤 𝘾𝙗𝙤 show, and that's where I saw it, and I thought, man, look, how can we ever live up to somebody like this that lives their life, lives their passion, and really lives the I don't know, the idea of being true to themselves and serving a community. So that's you. That's the epitome. That's all I've got to say. It's not building you up. It's just, the fact.
Oh, I appreciate it.
We deal in facts on this show. Facts. Remember, real facts. And that's what I meant.
I bring a whole bunch. My friends always tell me, Krystal, they can say a lot of things about you, but they'll never say you're fake. So be careful what you ask for.
Well, then let me ask this question, because I haven't seen you on this other program that Brett is mentioning. So tell the people, how did you serve this country, and what got Brett so excited? Can you tell me?
So my service to the country, I'm an Army vet, 63 Whiskey Hood, all-wheel mechanic. But what Brett saw me on, I did a conversation with Kelly in regards to, we talked. So I am, for anyone who does not know me, hey y'all, I am the owner of Fitness Is Not a Game, but I'm also the leader of what I've deemed to be the Black health and fitness revolution, because I've taken it upon myself to create a mission of helping 1 million Black families change their medical histories. And so that's what Brett saw me talking about, with the disparity with how Black people are diagnosed with preventable diseases, and how we can make those changes, and how that impacts us, especially with everything that's going on now with COVID. You see it's the Black and the brown people, we're dying more than everybody else ever since Dr. Fauci said that earlier last year. That's what shook me. When he talked about the numbers, I was like, okay, something's wrong. Why is that? But even though they're still trying to figure this thing out, they don't understand COVID. every month is something new. Every month is something different, a different treatment. But what they do know is that preventable diseases increases the chances of fatality. So when I heard those numbers, I said, okay, we need to do something because in the Black community, our numbers are just way too high. So what can we do? And what can I do personally to help change that number? So that's what Brett saw me. And I'm very passionate about that because if y'all can't tell, I'm Black.
Well, we kind of noticed.
You sort of noticed.
We are not of the school that says we don't see color. We see color and we see it in all its beauty, and you've got plenty of it.
Thank you.
And the other reason it built on, I thought it built on a great an episode we did with the Reverend Reverend Carmen, who brought us to church and talked about mental Black lives, right? The importance of the care, and so she was talking about how there is a difference in the way that mental Black lives are approached, and the awareness even inside the Black community about, right, that is important. And then that piqued my interest because I've done some work with a nonprofit here, National Kidney Foundation, where I kind of helped out in a lot of the Black community on the south side of Chicago about just physical wellness and health. And something you said, which kind of struck me, because one of the nurses there was from the south side, and often expressed a frustration in that in her community, there was a sense of just, I guess, surrender to what they were told was destined for them, like the diabetes and the things that came with the lifestyle that they, and so there was always this, it was just destiny. I can't do anything about it. My mother had this, I'm going to get it, that kind of stuff. And you mentioned in that show, you said, no, I'm trying to change that narrative. You can change the story and the direction of the health and fitness inside your community. So that's why I kind of thought that was a great point, right? It built on that. Yeah,
because they're preventable diseases. That's what they call them, preventable diseases, which means based on your lifestyle, you can prevent that diagnosis. You're not predisposed to it. Diabetes does not run in your family. High blood pressure does not run in your family. Typically, it's bad habits that run in the family. So when we think about that, they told me, because I have diabetes in my family. I won't say that it runs in my family, but I have diabetes in my family. And almost 20 years ago, the doctors, they were concerned I had diabetes because I drink so much water. So I'm just warning you all now, you'll see me drink my water. And I always tell people, when I drink water, you drink water. I just encourage people to have water. I'm a water bully. That's what they call me.
Give me my water.
Yes.
But
you caught me empty-handed.
Yeah.
But when I went to the doctor, actually I did a test. You know how, like, if you go to a public fair, they say, hey, can we, there's always like nursing schools, and they say, can we take your blood pressure, your blood sugar, just so the students could practice? And I said, sure. And when I did it, although I had just finished eating and I was drinking an iced coffee, drinking my water, my blood sugar was only at like 64. And they were like, okay, something's wrong. You need to go to the doctor. So, of course, I call my doctor. I go to the doctor and they start asking all these questions. Of course, they asked about my medical history. And then they were concerned. What really shocked them, they said, well, how much water have you had today? And I think at that time I had like 30 or 40 ounces, but it was only like 9 o'clock in the morning. And they were like, why do you drink so much water? I'm like, because I like water and I drink a lot of water. So they were concerned because, extreme thirst is one of the symptoms of diabetes. So they had me take the diabetes test and it came back normal. But my doctor flat out told me, she said, because of your medical history, you're more than likely still going to get it in like 10 years or so. And I remember walking out of there feeling defeated. Like, wow, I'm just going to get diabetes. But then it hit me. No, I don't have to. If I, but what was crazy, she said, I know you exercise at least 5 days a week. I know you eat right, but you're probably still going to get it. No, it's called preventable for a reason. You can manage that stuff. So that's my goal, is to pass on what I know and encourage people to make changes. It's not that you have to do extreme exercises. It's not that you have to follow extreme diets. And I cannot stand the word diets anyway, but it's just about the lifestyle that you adopt, the lifestyle that you adopt that can help push you further away from those diagnoses, because it's not necessary.
Now, would you say, is there credence to my assumption that a lot of these unhealthy habits that lead you away from where you should be health-wise in the African American community have been perpetuated because of lack of access to better nutritional options, right? Because of 400 years of oppression and financial, well, I would call it financial oppression, right?
Yes.
So because Black people don't have better opportunities available, or haven't had better nutritional opportunities available to them, that created that narrative of, oh, well, we're predisposed to diabetes or high blood pressure or whatever it may, whatever the story is. It's not something that is genetically predisposed. It's because of the environment, right? It's because of circumstance, not because of nature.
Absolutely. Okay. We're more culturally predisposed as opposed to genetically predisposed. There's a direct correlation between poverty and preventable disease diagnosis. Typically 70% of people who are in poverty have these preventable diseases. Because as you said, when you go to areas that have, what do they call them? There's so many cities, Black cities, that don't even have grocery stores, right? What do they call them?
Underserved communities.
Food deserts, right?
So food deserts, thank you. That's what it is. So when you don't have access to a grocery store for fresh fruits and vegetables, and even frozen fruits and vegetables that have just as much nutritional value as fresh, and you're eating all of this processed junk, what do you expect to happen? What do you expect to happen? Because at the end of the day, when it comes to being healthy, you cannot exercise and just have a balanced diet and you're still going to be fine. You don't absolutely have to exercise. You don't have to do 45 minutes a day. If you just eat, you're fine. Well, eat a balanced diet. However, or how I like to say, howbeiver, just one y'all in there. Howbeiver, you can exercise all day, but if you're eating junk, you're still going to be healthy. And I think a lot of people misunderstand what healthy is. Healthy is not how you look on the outside. There are a lot of skinny, unhealthy people. They're skinny, but when you look inside of what's going on, they still have all of those diseases because of the way they eat or whatever reasons, right? But a lot of people think that overweight people cannot be healthy. I know a lot of people who are considered to be overweight and even obese who do not have high blood pressure, who do not have heart disease, so it's just different. But when you don't have access to healthier food, what do you think is going to happen? As you said, Christian, they're setting us up. So that's why I push to say, okay, even though this is our situation, what are the things that we can do to fight back, to balance it out? Even if this is what your options are, what else do you have to get you closer to that goal of living longer and being healthy?
So what are some of the suggestions you have for people who live in a food desert or who have been traditionally exposed to unhealthy habits? So what is your approach? How do you basically close that cultural gap of malnutrition and malexercise?
Sure. So if you don't have the access to the healthier options of food, because one thing I always tell people, there's no such thing as good food or bad food. Food is food. It's just a matter of how it's going to impact what your goals are. Whether your goal is to lose weight, your goal is to get off medications, your goal is to get healthier. Whatever you eat impacts that goal in some type of way. And if you don't have the access that you would like, and I'm not going to be naive enough to say, oh, just Instacart it, or, there are always options. Some people just don't have options. When it comes to living a healthier lifestyle, if you don't have options, access to the healthier options. Like what I tell my clients sometimes, if you eat a certain thing, how about we change how much you eat of it? I'm not going to try to tell you don't eat it at all, but let's decrease it a little bit and increase your activity. No matter what's going on at the store, you can always control your activity level. Always. Even if you're in the home with no equipment at all, you can do it just by moving around in your house to make sure that you're at least, a lot of people talk about detoxing. I hate that too. I do. But detoxing, if you truly want to detox, it is just by pushing out the bad, so-called bad foods, the toxic foods, with healthier foods, right? But even exercising and sweating, when you sweat, you're releasing those toxins. So if what you're putting in your mouth, you know, you really don't have too many choices. And let's just be honest, sometimes you don't have the healthier choice, or can't even afford the healthier choice. You know, it's easier for you to buy lunch meat and it's processed, but you can still move your body and balance it out a little bit. So for those who don't have access, I just encourage them to move more, make that conscious decision. And it's really about the mindset. I said, with everything, nothing works if your mindset isn't where it needs to be first. If you don't understand your relationship with food, how what you're eating impacts your life overall, your activity level, how it impacts your life overall. If you don't understand that, then you won't be successful. So it takes a moment of self-assessment to say, okay, what are my goals? What am I doing? Because I know people who live in food deserts who still lost 80 to 90 pounds or more because they just said, you know what, I don't like where my body is right now. I don't like how I feel. I feel sluggish. I'm on these medications. So I'm going to make changes. I'm going to exercise more. I'm going to drink more water.
Yep. Drink
more
water.
Yeah.
Drink more water.
Drink more water. So as somebody, the important thing is, I guess, as in everything, right? You're talking about whether it's food, whether it's mental input, things we consume, it comes out somewhere in some way, shape or form, right? The influence. So, but I think it's also, would you say it's important as you as a Black woman with your appearance, saying that to somebody from your community makes a difference? I mean, I would assume that it is representation in all its forms, right? You've done it. You live, you walk the talk, and you're an inspiration for that. Does that help you in your business?
I would hope so, because I am proudly from East St. Louis, Illinois. East St. Louis has been deemed one of the most dangerous places in the country, but I still love it. Very proud to be. But at certain points, we have been a food desert. You know, I remember them closing the grocery store. Then there was a big argument and they opened it back up. You know, we may have had one store here, one store there. So I would hope that my experience with it, and that's why I said I won't ever be naive enough to say, oh, everybody has access to it. Oh, you can afford it. Oh, you just got to look in your budget and see what else you can get rid of. You know, do you really need that cable? How about, let's be real. You know, it's about lifestyle. So I will hope that my relatability will transfer, and so that people can understand that I understand where they're coming from. And it's like I said, it's all through my family: heart disease, high blood pressure, diabetes, cancer, you name it, we have it. But my goal is that when, because I always tell people, the first time I said 1 million families out loud, I scared myself. I was like, oh, Krystal, that's a big number. But then somebody reminded me that it's really not. It's not as lofty as I thought it was. But if you think about it, when I say I wanted to change medical histories, when I go to the doctor right now, I just went to the doctor yesterday, 2 days ago, and it was a new doctor. So of course I have to fill out the form, and it takes forever because I have to talk about what's on my level, my siblings, my mom, my parents, and my grandparents. And that's a whole lot. So now when my children go to the doctor, they don't say that their parents have anything. Their siblings don't have anything. Their grands, yes. But when I continue to pass on what I know and have that conversation with my children, their lifestyle is going to transfer to their children, so that when my grandchildren and when my great-grandchildren go to the doctor, they don't have to spend as much time going through the medical history, because they can say, no, we don't have that. No, not as far as I know. No. And that's how we change. That's how we make those changes in our medical history. And then 1 million people is exponential, because just from talking to you all, And from our listeners and our watchers, they're listening, they're going to take it and they're going to tell somebody else. So it's just exponential growth. As I said, if you just take one thing, I'm happy.
Now, I want to pick up on this very comment by our friend Patricia, who early on posted that she's working with you, so we're not divulging any secrets. But she says anyone from any race can work with you, or as an extension, the unhealthy state in which many of us find ourselves in isn't only a matter of race or a matter of ethnicity, right? So when we describe the food deserts affect people who live in the food desert, and not all of them are people of color, right? Especially in rural areas, especially in the South or the former Civil War regions. I live in Atlanta. I've been through the entire South, Alabama, Mississippi. You go through these rural areas, there are food deserts everywhere, right?
Yes.
And they affect a lot of people. And if you look at the statistics, these are the states that I mentioned are typically the ones that are affected worst by malnutrition or lack of exercise, or just being unhealthy, even to the level of obesity, right? So how, in your experience, you've been doing this work for a while now, what's the acceptance rate in the communities that you enter with your approach? With this, it's a mindset thing, right? You got to make the inner work, because otherwise the outer won't, right? So how have been your acceptance rates with your approach?
Acceptance rates of what?
Of your approach to educating people to healthier habits.
Oh, so how accepting are my clients to my approach?
Yes, or until they become clients at first, right? Once they're clients, I guess you got them.
Yeah, you know what?
If we were going to go out and sell Krystal, what would be what we need to go and sell you? You know, that's the thing.
It was interesting when you said, "What's my acceptance rate?" I was like, I'm accepting 0% of people being malnutrition. You know, that's why I was like, wait a minute, of zero. Because I want everyone. But I will say, I think what resonates with people is I don't believe in restriction at all. I don't believe in restriction. I don't believe in telling you, no, you cannot have. And it's more because I focus on, let's build a healthier lifestyle. Like I said, I do not like diets at all. Oh, I cannot stand it. That's a whole different conversation. But I always tell people diets are temporary, which means you're going to have temporary results. You know, you hear people all the time say, I tried so-and-so and I lost 20 pounds and then I gained it right back. That's why so many people are on that yo-yo effect. 80% of people who lose 10% of their body weight gain it back, if not more. 80%. You know, the average adult is going to try 55 diets in their lifetime, right? So when I talk more, exactly, Christian, that's how I felt. When I saw that number, I was like, goodness grief. But if you think about it, if they're trying 2, 3, 4 diets every year, that quickly adds up, right? So the acceptance that I think people get from me, or the reason why they accept my philosophy, is because I focus on, like you said, the mental. If it's not working on the inside, it's not going to show on the outside, period. So let's talk about how we're going to create a lifestyle based on what you have accessible to you. Everything isn't cookie cutter. It's not. There's no way I can tell you, do this, do this, do this. It's not. It's not the same. So what I have going on in my home right now in the south suburbs of Chicago is very different from Atlanta, and like you said, in Alabama and everywhere else. So I think that's most people who hear that, they appreciate that aspect of it, especially from a personal trainer, because we get the bad rep of being drill sergeants. No, put down the donut, go run 12 miles, and don't ever, think about fried chicken again. And I don't believe in approaching life like that. Not at all. Not at all.
You don't bring a little bit of that army in? Come on.
You know what? I don't. So I'll tell you this. What's funny is years ago, and I used to have this in my work signature, my trainer signature. My husband dubbed me the compassionate A kicker. Because I You know what A stands for.
Mm-hmm.
Because I do accept that we have lives to live. What I don't want for anyone is to feel like a healthier lifestyle is yet another task or chore or feel like a job, because that's when people quit and they stop. That's again, that yo-yo. So I'm very empathetic and I'm compassionate, but at the same time, I will tell you when you need to get back on track, when you're making excuses. But sometimes the excuses are just things that we've learned throughout our lives and don't realize there's another way. So I feel like that's my job as a coach, is to show you another way, give you more options.
Now, I have a suspicion here from an intercultural perspective, and Brett and I and many of us in the field, we talk about behavioral norms and cultural dimensions, and we also take it with a grain of salt when we talk about those. But one cultural comparison feature stands out to me as I listen to you, is that of how cultures approach challenges or projects. Do they approach them with a short-term goal motivation, or do they approach them with a long-term view? And when you talked about how many diets the average adult in the US will have during their lifetime, that to me is another example of how US culture tends to be fairly short-term motivated, as opposed to having a long-term approach to sometimes a systemic issue that needs to be eradicated with a process that may take a while. So diets don't work because you don't do the work, right? The diet in and by itself won't bring about the change you want. So is that something that you've been battling with, the short-termism amongst people that hire you there? I need to shed 12 pounds by end of next week because I need to fit in this and that dress or something like that.
Krystal, you hit it on the head. And I tell people over and over again, my programs are not for you if you are trying to lose weight quickly and just want a short-term fix. No, that does not work. And like you said, that is the American way. I want it quick, fast, and then somehow I'm going to stop doing it, but miraculously, I'm going to stay this way.
Right.
That's what I want. Like when I tell you, Christian, and when you saw, Brett was laughing at me because he was watching my face as you were talking. But honestly, there were times years ago when I honestly was like, okay, is this really what I'm supposed to do? Because, I'm going to call up my husband. He's like, you just care so much. And I'm like, yeah, because it's not about working with me for 4 weeks or 12 weeks, whatever you decide to do, because I'm trying to get you to be healthier overall. And so like digging into that head of saying, okay, this is even, and I tell people, I don't want you to stay with me forever. I want you to take the information that I'm giving you and put it into your life so that you don't need me. If you want me there as a support, great, fine. But I hope that you understand that this is a lifestyle. This is not a fad. This is not a diet. This is not just a program. This is not just a challenge. This is a lifestyle. And I say, Christian, you hit on the head. We want everything without doing anything. Everybody wants the results without doing the work. They don't want to move more. They don't want to limit how much they eat. That is such a challenge. That is such a challenge with this industry and just being in America, period, with that just want everything fast and now. We're such a fast society.
I think there's also, as you said, it's an industry. I think that it also is the words that people use or that we use in the English language. Usually we talk about losing weight, right? It's weight loss. And I think most of us have a tendency to go look for something that we lose, so we find it again. So that's the dieting yo-yo, right?
Oh, I love that. Christian, I might borrow that.
Yeah, go ahead. I borrowed it from someone else, so I'm just passing it through. Now, I have another suspicion. Is it maybe that in the military, you served for 8 years, you said, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So I served in my country, not for 8 years, but I've spent time in uniform, and it's been my understanding that in the armed forces there is no quick fix. You're not trained for a quick fix. You're trained to systematically work on your project. It's an exercise in project management if done right. So, would you say that military culture shaped to a certain degree how you approach your work?
That's interesting. I've had people tell me before that I'm a certain way because I was in the military, but I honestly think I was a certain way, and that's why I was able to do well in the military.
Okay, got it. Chicken and egg. Got it.
Yeah, because somebody's like, "Oh, that's that military," and I was like, "No, that's just why I didn't really have too many problems in the military, because I was I already thought that way." But you're absolutely right. It's not about it being quick, fast, and dirty. Now, there's sometimes we do have to in the military, you know that too, but it is more tactical. It is more tactical. Let's look at the end goal and create our strategies and our tactics to get there. And that's how I look at it. It is a battle. It is a battle. And I know too many people, typically, especially with adults, the majority of people I work with are between maybe 35 to 65, somewhere around there. And that just means that for 35 or 65 years, they've lived a certain way. They've had certain habits. They've been exposed to certain things. And so that is the other battle with showing them a different way, because it's really hard to break that. If you grow up in a household for 20 years, 25 years, and you don't see anyone being physically active, how do you say, yes, that's what I want to do, or that I can't even do, because that's not what you're exposed to? And when you see the way that people eat, when they put cheeses and sauces on everything and have no vegetables, and it's hard to, it is a challenge to get the transition going. That is definitely a challenge. But
did
when
you just tell me that cheddar is not a vegetable?
No, but Gouda is. And there's nothing wrong with cheese, well, in a sense, like I said, I don't believe in good or bad foods. I have a client, oh my gosh, you bring cheese, and that's why I said Gouda, because we just had a big conversation about Gouda and cheese right before Thanksgiving. And I mean, I think her heart was it just sings when you say cheese around her. But even in that sense,
contract over it.
You are funny, Christian.
But even with the myth of the Germans who have no humor.
But and I was in Kaiserslautern
I'm very sorry.
What year did I go to Germany? Goodness, I can't remember what year that was. 96?
Oh, wow.
Aging myself, right? Right. Did you say, oh wow, yes, Christian. Don't judge me.
I think that's when Kaiserslautern still had a first division soccer team. That's been a while.
I think that was 96. No, I don't remember. It was a long time ago when I was in Kaiserslautern. But even with cheese, again, with everything, when you know that it may not, if you have too much of it, then it's like, typically when I say goes against your goals, that means that when you look in the mirror, you're frustrated. That means that you're feeling lethargic. Maybe your clothes aren't fitting well. So if you feel any of those things, then possibly just try cutting back. Instead of a whole handful of cheese, actually measure. That's the other thing I tell people. Measure what you eat. That will expose you. When you measure and log your foods, that's when you get the real light bulb, like, okay, do I really need all of that? Am I doing too much? Where can I make changes? So that's why I was telling you, if you like cheese, then instead of a whole slice, cut it in half. Instead of a handful of cheese, actually measure out your quarter of a cup, which is a lot. Go by the serving sizes and see how that goes for you.
Yeah. Christina says mascarpone is a cheese but tastes like a dessert. Yeah, especially if you combine it with amaretto and chocolate powder and ladyfingers and make it a tiramisu. That's when it gets really bad.
Yeah, well, there's somebody.
Awesome.
The time I got the good time I spent down, in the African American community with the foundation. They used to serve up food. They would invite us because these were free screening events we would put on, and the wonderful people that would host us would bring this wonderful food, and it's like, man, I'm glad I don't live down here. I mean, no, anyway. So it's good food. It's good food, but and I kind of felt guilty but you shouldn't, right? You should have a little bit of it. That's the point. That's well. Krystal, look, we started off this. I started off the opening of this pointing to things that are going on in the world today, and we didn't know which way this conversation was going, but you were the right person on the right day. If nothing else, just to bring us out of this, I feel so much better. I was really not well before I came on here, and thank you. I mean, this is just a personal thank you from me. And I know you have this effect on your clients, and you're an inspiration. You were when I saw you speak on Kelly's show, and I mean it. And for those out there that, again, you've probably taken off the attention of the craziness that's going on in the capital of this country, instigated by the President Donald Trump. I'm going to say it out loud. If you support this demonic piece of crap, I'm done with you and everything that you have represented danger to the people that are friends of mine. You've instigated danger to the friends of mine, people that look like Krystal. Most importantly, right? I'm a white middle-aged guy. I'm pretty safe. I can go out and do anything I want. But that's privilege, and I don't get to. I get to enjoy that, but a lot of people don't, and it's because of this garbage that goes on, and we're seeing it. An attempted coup in this country. So I'm calling it what it is. I know Christian and I, he said the same thing on Twitter earlier, just before we went on, and said, if you do have one of these MAGA hats, if you do support Trump, we're done with you. We're not playing with you people anymore. The stuff that's on your hands will stink for ages, and it should stink. It should be a stench. We're going to get through it. What do you say? How about that? And I don't know what else to say.
We will get through this because we have to. I think if there's any silver lining of today is the symbols that became synonymous for one political faction in this country have now been exposed as what they've always been. They've been the symbols of treason. And we see you flaunting your treasonous symbols, whether it's a Confederate flag, a MAGA hat, a Proud Boys logo, a Trump flag, whatever symbol it is you're carrying, you're exposed. The veil is off. You've been trying to hide it for 4 years. But now we've seen your true colors today. We're done with you.
And you dishonor the services of this wonderful, like the people like this wonderful lady today. So we wanted to get that out there at the end of this. This is a serious part of it. Not to bring it down, but Krystal, you keep fighting that fight. You represent the best of what America is. And it should be celebrated, and it shouldn't be under siege like it is just day to day. Not just today, right? It's under siege every day. You shared with us before, right today, it's had an effect on your family. Tell us about that, right?
Yeah, so my son, we're in Chicago, and his girlfriend lives in Indiana. Well, she attends Notre Dame. And he had just asked earlier today, hey, can I go spend the weekend with her? And we were like, sure, because she hasn't been there. She's been quarantining. We are really big on quarantining. We don't go anywhere. But he asked, and we said, sure. And then when everything happened, my husband had to tell me, he said, I don't think he should go because that's Indiana. And we cannot send our Black son to Indiana right now with everything that's going on. We have to keep him in the house, keep everyone protected. And I was just saying our younger son, he likes to take walks around our neighborhood. At this point, until everything calms down, we all need to stay in the house just to see what happens. And we shouldn't have to have that conversation. And I'm fortunate that and the other part of that is our son, his girlfriend is white. He's in a mixed relationship. And so they've been together for almost 2 years. This was, I guess, like their pre-anniversary weekend. But we don't know how they will be received outside of this house, outside of her home. So it's a shame that we have to have that conversation to say, well, you know what, because of the relationship you're in, the love that you have, that might be an issue. So just stay in the house. We shouldn't have to do that, but we do. And I'm grateful that he understood, you know, of course, with having young Black men, we have this conversation frequently because we can't avoid the conversation. It's a conversation that cannot be avoided at all. So, yeah, and it was just disappointing because no parent wants to go back and tell their child, you know what? No, I take it back. No, you can't do that. You know, that didn't feel good, but you know, that's part of parenting. You have to make the hard decisions. But my husband was absolutely correct. At this point, we do have to make sure. And then not to Indiana. Indiana? Of all, no.
It's
no.
a world away, right?
No.
And I try and explain to people outside this country where, yes, we're in a state which predominantly may have a certain tendency towards a certain political side of the spectrum.
Sure.
And yet 35 miles away, people that look like you live in danger and have to be careful of their P's and Q's. Not that they don't in this state, right? It's prevalent here, but it's not far away.
I live right here, and you go anywhere around here, and it's different. So
yeah,
it's the same in many parts of this beautiful country. And the fact that we're talking about this, the fact that you and your husband and your son had to have this conversation is one of the main reasons why I do the work that I do, because this is not the promise of this country. It's never been that. And our work isn't done until you don't have to have this conversation anymore.
Well, I thank you for the fight. We always appreciate allies because we need them. We need them. That's the absolute truth. It's like I said, the conversations, it's not easy. And it's so funny because if you met my children, they're so kumbaya. They're so kumbaya. Like, they did not understand why we kept having the conversations with them because they're, like I said, his girlfriend is white. It's not like, it's like, and they didn't grow up. We grew up in a majority Black. Well, he grew up mainly around Black students, but they just believe in seeing people. They would always say, well, Mom and Dad, why do you always have this conversation? Because we're trying to prepare you for the world. Because they're just like, I just like people. That's great, but all the people don't like you. So because our older son, when he was at Notre Dame, he was at Notre Dame when Trump won in 2016. And, we had to call him and ask him, how's the environment and what are your plans for the weekend? And we shouldn't have to have that conversation. But he said it's uncomfortable. Okay, great. I need you to stay in for the weekend, and it shouldn't be that way. It shouldn't be that way. But unfortunately, that's where we are. That's where we are. Yeah.
No, and I remember we were at a conference the day after, at the start of this despotic regime, and our friend Ahmed, who is a proud Muslim Indian man and an important part of our community and a respected and a leader that we look up to. I've never seen such fear in that man's eyes. I mean, he's a friend of mine, and that made me sad. And I don't, and that will always stay with me for just the way his look. I mean, sheer fear. He'd just gone through airports and things like that the day after that election. Yeah. So for those that are watching, you might, there's all these people that say, can't we move on beyond? No, we can't move on beyond. It exists. It's still here. It's a cancer on this society. And Christian's right. We will never stop, and we will make mistakes as white people. But we're just trying. We've got to be humble enough to say, just try and do it. We're going to make mistakes. We're going to learn from people like Krystal. And Christian, I'm not sure if you have to, but and people that have been here, Patricia and Kelly and Tamara Thorpe and Amer and Tayo Roxon, all these people. I'm missing out a whole bunch of people that are dear friends of ours and teachers of ours that guide us in this work. And we need to be doing this hard and harder. It gets tiring. It's tiring, but you know, it's got to be done. So thank you, and thank you for Patricia. Next revolution, getting fit for the next revolution. That's right. It's coming. It's not far away. All right,
Yeah.
Chris, thank you so much for, I mean, just coming on this day and bringing us to I guess a sense of positiveness and inspiration that we probably needed at the very most important time.
Oh,
So,
like I said, I thank you for having me. This was fun. It was great talking with you all. It really was.
Isn't
It really was.
No, it's great.
Once in a while.
We're trying to be humble.
It was great. It really was.
Krystal, thank you very much. I really appreciate you coming on. And Brett, thank you for your candor. And to all of you watching, we'll be back tomorrow. There's going to be another episode, and the world will keep turning, and the good side of humanity will always prevail. And I don't give up that belief. We'll see you tomorrow.
See you guys.